Hi, everyone, and welcome to Smart Franchising with Fransmart. We know you're used to hearing Dan Rowe, the powerhouse behind Fransmart. But this season, we're doing something a little different. It's the Fransmart Team Takeover. We've taken over Dan's mic because, honestly, we wanted in on the fun. We've been dying to talk to some of the franchisees we admire most, and this was our shot. Each episode, a member of the Fransmart team will sit down with a franchising powerhouse to swap stories, lessons, and insider tips from the field. Let's get into it. Welcome to Smart Franchising with Fransmart, Team Takeover.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us at Smart Franchising Podcast. This is the Team Takeover. My name is Jenny Budwig, and I'm with Fransmart, and I'm here with Jesse Kaiser, the CEO of Kaiser Enterprises. Jesse is a multi-unit franchise owner with 50 plus locations across multiple states all across the U.S. He includes brands like Sports Clips, OxyFresh Carpet Cleaning, Little Caesars, and Waxing the City. Thank you for joining us today, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
was excited to chat with your story, how you got into franchising, and how you've built, amazing brands across multiple states. That's got to be a lot to manage.
The bigger the company gets, the easier it is to manage. And right now, my top responsibility is just keeping the culture clean, and making sure that every location represents my personality and how I think customers should be treated and how I think employees should be treated. So that's when you get to a certain level, then you just focus on the culture. Because if the culture is king, customers will come and people will apply and want to work where you are. So that would be my advice is always make sure that you keep culture king.
I love that. It's good to have a good, solid Northern Stars. You're building it out. So, you always haven't had 50 plus locations.
No.
How did you get into franchising?
So I started out with in the .com industry in the late 90s, early 2000s while I was still in college, and actually had saved up a nice little nest egg and was getting ready to venture out on my own. And I really liked where I worked, but I was never going to be a partner. And I really liked the owners, so I didn't want to go in competition with them, although I think that probably would have been much easier and faster for me. So I was like, well, I'm going to go in the restaurant business. And originally we were going to buy an existing pizzeria in the college town that we were living in. Even had my brother working there so he could learn how everything's made and done, because we weren't sure if we were going to have enough money saved up to be able to buy it before it went under. The owner had become absentee. The product was still great, but when the owner becomes absentee, it goes downhill. So anyway, I'm about to really get into this. And one of the owners of the .com company I work for goes, you don't want to do that. I'm like, why? If you buy that, you will have one successful location the rest of your life. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, you need to buy a franchise. And I'm like, well, what's a franchise? And so he explained it to me. And I was like, okay, so I can do pizza franchise. So I got on the internet, found pizza franchises and started doing my due diligence with that. But that's actually how I got into franchising, was from a conversation from a guy that had never owned a franchise. He just said, and I asked, and he said, they're going to teach you how to run a business. He's like, you're really good at what you do, but you have no experience actually running a business. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, this is a nice subtle hint that I should keep learning, so that's how I did that.
Great advice. Have you thanked him for that advice over the past years?
I have. I've actually, reconnected with him. I left in 2005, so it's been now 20 years that I haven't been with him. But he was 10 years or so older than me. We were actually from the same fraternity chapter. So that's how we knew each other. He had actually recruited me while I was in college. I was kind of upheaving the fraternity and making a name for myself. And so he just came to me one night while I had a beer in my hand and was like, hey, I want you to come work for me. I'm like, well, who are you? And what do you want me to do? So he took me under his wing and taught me an awful lot, actually.
That's amazing. So, you and I talked about it. I have a software background, especially like those early days. They're almost the opposite of what franchises are, at least from my experience.
Oh, yeah. But so... at the heart of it, I'm very entrepreneurial, right? And that's what the software background is very entrepreneurial, where franchising it's a tried and true method. It's a system. And when you don't follow it, it tends to not go well for you. So I always liked that there was a structure to follow. And then just by good practices and staying on top of things, there's a lot of things that are entrepreneurial on how you handle issues with clients or employees. Site selection, you could sit back and wait for brokers to send you flyers, or you could go out and drive the market and say, I really want to be there. There's not a spot open, but I'm going to keep an eye on that for the next 6 months because eventually something will come out and I want a spot in there. So there's still a lot of entrepreneurial things you can do. It's just don't mess with the system. If anything, when you buy into a system, say, this is a pretty darn good system. How can I make it better? Making it better means you're just reinforcing the key parts of what makes a system great in the first place. And so, no one's bats 1,000 at being, the best franchisee in the world, but, it's looking for new ways to get closer to that 1,000 hitting record. That's very entrepreneurial to me anyway.
I love that. And just like leading from within the system too. I mean, you were the 2018 Oxy Fresh Carpet Cleaning Owner of the Year. You were the Sports Clip Owner of the Year. I mean, obviously you're competitive, I would imagine.
I wasn't born with, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I'm at a point in my life now where I don't really have to worry about money. I mean, so it's just about growing and being excited about new opportunities. And, another thing too about being in multiple brands is you're getting different systems. And there's going to be things that overlap that you understand and pick up really easily. So it makes it easier picking up your second and third brand. But what's interesting is, like, for example, my first brand was a restaurant. Restaurants open up crazy, and then they settle down to some level where that's what the market supports. Salons are the exact opposite. They open up like tumbleweeds go across the cutting floor. And then 10 years later, it's the busiest salon in town. So I thought to myself, I'm like, well, what makes a restaurant be so busy in the very beginning? And why can't a salon do that? And it's because you don't normally get to hire enough people and get them trained correctly. And then you don't spend enough money in marketing because the investment in a salon is a little bit less. It's a lot less than the investment in a restaurant. So I just started saying, how about I hire more, train more, and market more for my grand openings? And then my grand openings became records.
That's amazing. And, we talk to a lot of franchisees here at Fransmart and, emphasizing that grand opening, especially if it's a first location in a region, et cetera. How has that helped you? I mean, it sounds like, you learned kind of on your own.
Well, and I need to be fair and say that, like of my sport clips, while I probably still have 7 of the 10 biggest grand openings, probably I'm not like 7, 8, 9. I'm like, I got the number 1, number 2, probably number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that kind of thing. There's been some other good openers too in the brand. So, the trick to this, just like anybody, you got to get to cash flow break even as fast as you can. Because it just allows you to manage the business correctly. I think a lot of times when you're in you're feeding the pig kind of situation, sometimes you skip over $1 to save a nickel. And a lot of times that's not the best situation to grow the business.
It's hard. It's hard to make that investment up front, but you've seen from experience the difference when you do versus when you don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't make the investment in hiring better people, training them better, and then spending more marketing to let everyone know in town that you're open and that you've got some resemblance of a guarantee of an exceptional experience. If you do those 3 things, you're going to be successful. Piece of advice I always give you've been in 6 different industries, been successful in all of them. What is the thing that connects them all? And I don't jump into anything unless I have a fun and found understanding of who my ideal customer is. And the franchisor will tell you that. And then who the ideal employee is. And a lot of times franchisor has no idea who the ideal employee is, or if they do, they're not able to articulate in a way that they're comfortable doing it. Right. And I'll just give you an example. So, let's look at Chick-fil-A, fried chicken sandwich, but in their drive-through line are people that do not go in other drive-through lines. They don't. So why is it? It has 100% to do with the client experience and not the chicken. The chicken's good. Don't get me wrong. Popeyes has a great sandwich. McDonald's now has a good sandwich. Everyone's got a good sandwich. So what is the difference? Well, it's where they're pulling their employees from. So in the United States, they're very faith-based, right? So almost all their employee group, at least during the grand opening, and then it's birds of a feather flock together. They're pulling them from like community churches and other religious organizations. It's also why you see phenomenal numbers in Chick-fil-A in the United States. And outside the United States, they perform much closer to their contemporaries. And that's because outside the United States, like Canada as an example, they don't go to church. They go to their cottage. Their religious experience is going to their cottage in the summer, right? So it's not an easy place to grab the same type of people. I'm not saying that there's not those type of people in Canada that are working at Chick-fil-A in the United States. I'm just saying it's very easy that they're all massed together and they already know each other. So if you're already part of that organization, it's pretty easy to know who's going to show up on time, who's going to treat the clients right, who's going to have a smile every day, no matter if it's raining or sunny.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Yeah. Oh, you're on it. Now, we talked a little bit earlier just about your first location and going out to expand to your second location. And, it was a learning moment for you in those early days. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I mean, every day in the beginning was a learning experience. Sure. Yeah. Originally, we got our first license. We opened up. It was a great location. It was doing gangbusters. I had not yet learned how to make or read a P&L correctly. All I knew was that the bank account every week was getting bigger, right? And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that's the only measurement of success is the account growing or shrinking. So it was growing, but it was not growing like it should have for the type of volume we were doing. And it's because we weren't managing our food costs and our labor costs correctly. So it got to the point where, I actually got in an argument with the development people at Little Caesars. Like, we're not going to give you a second license. You're a bad operator, basically. They didn't come out and say it, but they just said, these are out of line. And I was like, but I'm making money. I was like, my argument was, but I'm making money. And they're like, you're making money now, but everything has cycles. And if you run your business like this on a downturn, it's not one store that's going to close. It's 2 or 3. Whatever we let you open, they're all going to close. And we're not better for it. And you're not better for it. So why don't you get better at running one location, prove to us you can actually run it correctly, and then we'll happily sell you all the licenses you want. And that's what they did. So we opened our first one. It took 16 months for them to be convinced I was a good enough operator. Because, the first one opened up gangbusters. We're breaking some records for the type of market we're in. And no, they made me wait a year. Because within 6 months, I was ready to open the next one, right? There was cash in the account. And I had already proven myself. And, I was 27 or 28 at the time. So I was full of hubris. Very, very much.
All of us are at that age. No, but I think that's so important. Could you imagine if you hadn't had that conversation then, and then suddenly they let you go and you open up 4 or 5?
I'd probably be bankrupt. And I would have figured out after that would have been a learning experience. I don't think that would have brought me down. One thing about America that's unique compared to all the other countries in the world is if you go bankrupt in another country, you're done. You're dishonored. No one trusts you. And in America, it's almost a badge of honor. And I haven't done it yet, and I don't plan on it. But, America is the greatest comeback story ever. So you can file for bankruptcy, learn your lessons, take your lickings, and then come back at it if you've got the tenacity to do it. So I was fortunate enough I didn't have to do that. But, and I'm glad. And the only reason is because Little Caesars had the financial maturity to say, I know you're looking good now, but when customer counts go down 5%, we see you underwater. I'm like, okay,
better to learn from others' failures than to learn from your own.
I had breakfast with Damon John from Shark Tank in March, and he said, you're either learning from your mistakes or from mentors. Mm-hmm. So you get to pick which one you want to learn from.
Yeah.
So I try to learn as much as I can from mentors and not my mistakes.
Little less expensive.
Awesome. Stressful, painful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All the things. Now, so yeah, obviously you learned from Little Caesars, you grew, and then, you started moving into multiple states pretty early on in your franchise journey. What was that like?
Yeah. So we were nestled at the very southern tip of Illinois, southern Illinois. And so your major population centers weren't to the north of you by several hours to the north, where you go 45 minutes to an hour to the east, the west, and the south, which happened to put you in 3 separate states.
Yeah.
So those are our first states that we jumped into because they were just literally in our backyard. So a lot of people give me credit for being in multiple states. It literally, it's a 45-minute drive that way, where if I was nestled right in the middle of the state, I would have been all in Illinois or, whatever, and not gone to another state for a while.
Nice. Well, at least they're easy enough to visit. But, with 50 plus locations, how are you managing operationally getting the pulse of the business? And probably some of these early franchisees are like, how are you doing it?
Yeah. At this point now, like Sport Clips as an example, because that's what we had the most locations of, and it's spread out the most. I'm at the point now where I don't even need to know what our store average was for net sales every week. I can tell how profitable we were by a couple other reports that show nothing about net sales. The number one I look at is I've got a commission report that I look at. And when that commission report's tall and long, I know that everyone working with me made a lot of money and I clearly made a lot of money. And when it's short, then I go, what's going on here? And I look into it. That's one of the reports that I look at every week is how much are my employees making? Because in the salon business, it's a direct correlation. If you've got cosmetologists that are making more money than they were a month ago, then you're probably making more money than a month ago. So that's where I keep the pulse of the business is how much money are all my team members making?
I love it. Building wealth through creating wealth for others. That's huge. And just aligning, probably their goals are aligned with your goals and just driving more revenue.
Yeah, compensation is the one thing that I don't think people talk about enough, but focusing on having the employees understand and having a compensation plan that rewards them for doing the right behavior is huge. So like as an example, I make sure that the store manager and the district manager are compensated on the same key metrics, not different ones. And so they're working together. They're not pushing and prodding like, well, it doesn't impact her, but it sure impacts me if I get this KBI up. So I've just got them so they're aligned together. So everyone's on the same team, pushing in the same direction, right? Without me having to tell them. They just, the financial motivation is there they're incentivized to do the right things. And as an example, my district managers are compensated over the productivity of their team members and then the sales growth. Now, my store managers are on productivity, but just store sales. And so I don't want a manager to be like making less because they've plateaued out where they've got 8 chairs going in an 8-chair salon, open to close most of the days a week. There's nowhere to go with that, right? So the next year, the growth won't be massive, but it'll be there. So then the area manager or district manager is compensated on, okay, how do we get incremental increases on a store that's already like that? And so it's through more productivity or increasing the total average ticket and getting new clients to come in when we have some lulls, right? So they're all compensated on just getting clients in there and being productive.
No, that makes so much sense. And it allows you to step away from that day to day and also kind of gives them a compass on guiding their decisions every day. That's so smart. Yeah.
Yeah. I have an A-type personality. I try not to visit my store. I will interact with my team members as much as I can, but I try not to visit the stores a whole lot. And when I do, I'm quick to say, store looks great. Hey, she's doing an awesome job. But I will inevitably see stuff I hate, don't like, and the younger version of me would take that person aside, address it right then and there because it's a serious thing. Now I'm kind of like, okay, mental note. Then I'll have a conversation with their boss and say, hey, I observed this, thought this was great. I don't like this. I don't like this. Can you please address it? And it always gets addressed. And it's never in a disarming way. So I'm looked at as the fun dad. And then my district managers are the moms that come in and yes, they'll wipe your nose, but they're also the ones that tell you weren't doing a good job.
Well, congratulations on moving up to the fun dad role. I think that's where
great. I love it. Now, at some point, I'd like to do that in my personal life, but I'm not there yet.
Not yet. Soon enough.
I still have to play the Evie sometimes.
It's all right. It's a parent. It's consistent. Now, so, okay, so you've moved into multi-states and then, also just moving into multi-brands, there's a lot of conversation of like, do you stick with one brand and just go all in and just keep scaling there? What made you choose to go into multiple brands and where'd you find them?
So, with Little Caesars, we got up to 4 locations. We eventually got to 5, but that's because some territory that was being reserved for somebody else was reopened. So we got to 4, and we're like, what do we do? Because it wasn't that Little Caesars wasn't letting us open more. We could not find a large enough population base close enough that someone that we would hire as a district manager could see those stores and our current stores. So we got to the point where I was like, well, okay, there's so little marketing options where we are because it's pretty rural. So I became a Valpak franchisee. Never heard of it. The only reason I found out about Valpak was it was in the Little Caesars marketing cookbook of different templates that you could use. And I was like, what's Valpak? And quite honestly, it was 2005. If it was 1995, I still wouldn't known what it was. But because it was the internet, age of the internet, I just Googled it and was like, I could do this. So we did Valpak. We did Valpak for several years. And in fact, we got into sport clips because of Valpak. And it was like my third store open. And I realized, man, this is so much more fun than selling advertisement. So I can't do both. I'm just going to get rid of that one, sell it off, and then focus on the sport clips. So we did sport clips, and we kept buying and building, and that's why we're in 5 states. We're cherry picking A+ locations. And then other opportunities came up, and we were like, yeah, we could do that too. And what was interesting about the Valpak time was I got to interview all these business owners, talk to them about their profitability, what their customers look like, everything. And I just started identifying industries where the average owner did not understand marketing. And I was like, well, if I can clean carpets as good as you and I understand marketing, I'm probably going to beat you in the marketplace. So that's how I got into carpet cleaning. That's how I got into salons. So it was just from interviewing people, and there's great margins in carpet cleaning, and there's great margins in the salon industry. So, high margins, not sophisticated owners. I'm like, yep, that's where I want to be.
That's awesome. No, just doing a little bit of market research and seeing that there's a point for you in your area.
Yeah. And I will say this. I think the worst nightmare for me is to jump into an industry where everyone is as smart or smarter than me. Because where do I go? I'll punch down for as long as I can.
Nice. You found your strategy.
Right.
That's awesome.
Now, the flip to that too is when I evaluate a new concept, I'm looking for white space to grow, but I'm also looking for enough franchisees out there that I can acquire eventually. And the other thing is I do have a hard rule. I've got to find 2 or 3 people that are killing it. Okay. Because I still have to learn something about that industry, and I'm not going to learn it from the franchisor. I'm going to learn it from the people that are the operations people, right? Not that the training is not going to be good from the franchisor. It's just, it's much different to say, okay, when it's all said and done, how do you sleep at night knowing all the bills are going to get paid? And that's something only another owner can tell you and not a franchisor. When I evaluate a new brand, I make sure there are some people I can learn something from. So I don't want to give that idea that I want to be the smartest person in the room. I just want the industry average to be below my intelligence, if
that
that's
makes
possible.
Sense.
And I've ran into some industries where I better not being in it, because there are some
always doing the due diligence and always checking it out. But yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, again, you want to see other franchisees who are in it day in, day out, have built it from scratch, taken the systems and replaced them in different regions. So that's brilliant. That's smart. Now, obviously, I'm sure the early days you were in the stores building. You're finally at a place where you both play fun dad, but also get into some advocacy, start giving back, start getting more involved in the franchising industry. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing in that?
Yeah, but to go backwards, so with every industry and keep in mind, I have a partner, my brother, and while now he handles more of the back office stuff, he was an operator too, and he still is an operator. He runs the OxyFresh division of our franchise group. So I haven't put in my 10,000 hours in carpet cleaning, but I could tell you he and I both put in our 10,000 hours at Little Caesars. And when I got into the salon business, I spent 9 months, 7 days a week, open to close. in there. And it got to the point where I already knew what was going to happen, right? And so if someone called me and said, so-and-so did this, I'm like, no, they didn't. It's impossible for them to do that in our salon. We don't have that here, which is just kind of crazy. So I got able to manage it remotely just from the phone and understanding everything. Even just yesterday, I have a newer district manager, and she's like, our no wait sign's broke. Can I get a new one? Oh, no. We're going to troubleshoot this. Turns out it works just fine. It needed a reset, right? So, but that's only because I spent 10,000 hours in a salon dealing with all those issues. I'm like, these things don't fail very often. So let's find out what else is going on. So yeah, you got to get your 10,000 hours in. That's my advice to anyone thinking about getting into the franchise or any other thing is you're not able to walk away and have other people run it till you get those hours in. It's just, that's the realization of it. And if you're smart, maybe it's 9,000 hours, but there's some muscle memory that needs to be put in there. So, I have served for the last 10 years on Franchise Update's multi-unit franchise conference board. I was the chair of it 2 years ago. I am honored to be the vice chair, and next year I will be the chair of the franchisee forum of the International Franchise Association, which puts me on their board. The IFA has an annual event called the Summit, the Advocacy Summit. And this year it's in September. I think the next following year it'll be in June, which I think is a better month. But it's been in September. I've always had a good time. The IFA, if you're a franchisee, if you'll come out to DC, they will spend a day bringing in some great speakers, educating you. And then they will go ahead based on where you live and where your locations are. They will set up the appointments with the representatives and senators of the states that you're in. And you're looking at maybe a 30-minute conversation with that congressman or senator, or at least their lead staff people. And a lot of people are like, well, it's not them. Honestly, I've had a representative that I didn't get to meet with him, but I got to meet with his chief of staff, and he had been authorized that he could co-sign any legislation that wasn't dealing with war or something else. And he's like, no, we're going to co-sign this. So, and that bill, eventually, that was a bill that we were working on for a tax credit for the employer side of the FICA Medicaid on tips for salon and spas. So that wasn't anything to do with franchising. Franchising just gave me an opportunity to get in there and meet with a lot of people. But the really great thing was it took 2 years, multiple visits out to DC and also visiting home offices. But it got passed in the big, beautiful bill at the last minute. My involvement with the IFA, I got to meet Trump and on June 26th, which was my birthday. I was given like 36-hour notice. I was in Minneapolis doing training for another brand that we just signed up. And we were finishing up that day, and they're like, hey, in 36 hours, we need you in DC to meet Trump. I'm like, what? And honestly, I was up there with my wife, and I was up there with my brother for training. And I literally was like, no, tomorrow's our one-year-old's birthday. I'm like, I don't want to miss it. And I'm like, I'm sure I'm going to have an opportunity in the next couple of years to meet him because of my work with IFA. And I was like, oh, pass, it's too soon. And both my brother and Genevieve were like, no, you got to go. So they put me on a plane. I was going to drive back. I put me on a plane so I could come home, get a suit, and then fly out to DC the next day. And it was a great experience. I got to meet most of his cabinet. Quite interesting. Whether you're a fan of Trump or not, I'm just going to tell you, he doesn't read from a teleprompter. I was so close to him when he spoke for 45 minutes. It's all handwritten on line paper, all of his notes, and they're just notes. 1 to 2 lines, space, 1, 2 lines. So he reads it with a little factual data in there, and then he just speaks about the subject for 5 minutes. It was quite interesting to see that.
That's awesome. No, I think, it's so cool that you were able, everybody cares about the advocacy and, going out, but the ability to actually change your industry and help your bottom line at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Just having these meetings and being involved. And that's an incredible story to see it from fruition.
Yeah. Any franchisees listening and you're like, I don't know. I don't have many pain points. Being top of mind, I'm going to tell you time and time again, most of the people that we elect to go to Washington, D.C. don't understand what franchising is. They understand that maybe McDonald's is a franchise. They have no idea that Holiday Inn is a franchise. They have no idea that if you own a Ford dealership and you sell F-150s, well, that's a franchise. It looks a little different, but it still is a franchise. 7-Eleven is a franchise. Most of your gas stations, when you see Shell or BP, those are franchises. They're not owned by the corporation. They're owned by local people. But what I would say is, as an entrepreneur, you really want to be in control of your own destiny. But there is an amazing opportunity. I mean, I didn't go to Capitol Hill till I was in my 40s, right? I've got young children. My oldest is 14. She's going to be a freshman in high school. Her senior year, I'm pulling her out of school and we're gone. Now, the cool thing is I think we're moving into June, so I don't even have to pull her out of school now. But I plan on taking all 4 of my children when they're at high school senior. They're going and they're going to meet and talk to the representatives. And the representatives love it. They love it when families come in, because I go with my brother. And so, you guys are brothers in your business together. And so I'm excited because I've sat in rooms where other people have brought their college age kids, and they want to talk to the college age kid because they're just like, you can vote for me now and I need a young vote. So what is it that you need? So it's really interesting. And just for my children and other franchisees' children to get that experience, that's something 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, your parent didn't do that for you. So this is an amazing opportunity. You don't have to be someone big and mighty in your franchise system. If you're a franchisee, you should go, period.
I love that. And yeah, getting the family involved. I mean, they're going to learn a heck of a lot more by being in those rooms, those conversations, seeing everything versus a book. That's awesome. I love that you're going to bring your family.
I'm an old country boy and I love to hunt. And the old saying was, you make a good bird dog by killing a lot of birds over it. And so my parenting philosophy is very similar. I drug my 13-year-old son up to Michigan 2 weeks ago for a grand opening for one of our salons, and made him sign shake for days on end out there in the sun, because I wanted him to work hard. I wanted him to learn what the process was like. And so same thing with this. So, for everyone that's a parent, you can give them a job when they're out of college, but if you don't get them in the mesh and experiencing things, and again, this is a thing where we're having conversations with our elected officials that we don't normally have with our friends. So even if you're like, I'm tight with my 13-year-old son, we go work out every day at the gym before school, but I'm looking forward to him being able to have those listen and have those conversations about policy, bigger picture things that have something to do with me, but more to do with more people, like that tax rebate for salons that affects every barbershop, every salon, every spa in the country. Right. So, and most of them are independents. They're not franchisees. So it's just another opportunity for them to say, okay, I can be in charge and I can help. I can contribute in a positive way. And so just that mindset, I think, is really important for being a parent. So
I love that. And just getting out and, being a good citizen, getting involved early and, again, like you said, being able to realize that they can reach more, than just their own business one day, their own community one day. I mean, nationwide is epic. That's great. Now, between you and your brother, I think you have 6 kids. You say, you're getting them out, you're getting them involved in business early, which I love. Just as a parent, I always talking to my kids about what's going on in the day to day, whatever. Are they going to, be involved in the business? What's kind of the next steps?
I was having breakfast with my 13-year-old son, and I was like, I'm not giving you the business. And he's like, he put his fork and knife down, like, what? I'm like, he's like, I think he thought he had a layup or something like that. So I said, when you're old enough, go find a franchise that you're interested in. I don't care what it is, and I will help you pay for the first location, but you're going to be the manager. He's like, oh, not a problem. He's like, okay, well, how long do I have to be the manager? And I looked at him and I said, until you can afford to pay someone else to do it. He's like, oh. And, it hit on him. There was some real responsibility there, and you actually have to produce something of value. He's 13, so he's prepped for that. So by the time he's 24, 25, if he's ready to do something like that and he has maturity for it, great. We're good for it. That's his expectation, is that you're going to get there and you're going to be an operator. I don't care if at the end of the day you don't do operations, you handle marketing. Well, if you understand operations, you understand when you shouldn't be doing marketing. Like when you're already short-staffed or you're at capacity and all you're going to do is upset new customers by the wait times, then you don't market, right? But you don't have that concept unless you're an operator and you understand what's going through your employees' minds on the floor dealing with the customers that are happy or upset.
I love that. And just, getting him in, building the engine, understanding what influx, how it affects every element of the business and just the business side alone. I mean, he could take that not only in franchising, but, it's exciting to see next gen entering franchising too. That's exciting. No, that's amazing. I mean, what would you tell yourself? You've built an incredible business with your brother. Looks like, it's exciting to see that you're, educating your kids on it and sharing the wealth of knowledge. What would you tell yourself, like a younger version of yourself before getting into franchising and building what you've built?
Well, I think the advice that I wish someone sat me down and explained to me much better than people tried to, was probably the true currency is trust and relationships, right, in life. And if you have great relationships, they're going to be based on trust. Just being a better person to be in relationships with. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships, although that applies to that too. I'm talking about business relationships, employee-employer relationships, friends, just acquaintances. And then also the other thing is stop worrying about what you're going to get. Start worrying about what you're going to contribute and give, right? So like I get asked to speak all the time. I'm happy to speak. I love to speak. And I do it well enough. I keep getting asked. But after I speak, I have people come up to me and go, hey, you did great, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate that. But my one and only question I always ask is, what was your biggest takeaway? What value did I create? Because if no one can tell me what I created value for them, then I wasted my time. I wasted their time. And that's not how good relationships work, right? You create value for the other person. And then whatever you get from it is a byproduct, right? Money is a byproduct of just doing a great job.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. I think if you focus only on the money, the other things it's not going to come as much as just doing the right thing for the right people at the right time. I love that. Well, awesome. I don't have any other questions for you. Any other wisdom you want to drop, or I feel like I got to get to Wisconsin?
No. So is your podcast for existing franchises or more interested in franchising?
So, I mean, we do get folks that are interested in franchising, but a lot of our audience are, they have like 1 to 3 different locations, they're early days, and then, are looking to scale.
Well, the advice I'd give to those people, the 1 to 3s, because I was there at one point, is don't talk to the franchisees that are in your neck of the woods unless they happen to be some of the top performers in your system, which normally isn't. That's not how it works. And then stop telling yourself excuses, right? So because they're able to do something, you should be able to replicate it. Okay. Too many times, I see people go, well, I can't do that. Oh, that won't work for my store. Okay. I hear that from managers a lot. Well, it's like, if I got a new manager, I'm pretty sure if they had a different mindset, they're going to think differently about how this store could run. So that would be my advice to the people generating and building that momentum is just do not tell yourself excuses. Give yourself reasons why you can't. And then everything's bright and glorious in front of you.
It's amazing. That's great advice. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Have a great vacation. Enjoy your time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, Jesse.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Smart Franchising with Fransmart. I'm your host, Dan Rowe. If you enjoyed today's episode, this podcast is only going to get better. Please like, comment, and subscribe to hear more from the most successful franchisors and franchisees, and we'll see you next time.